Hello, my Power Plant Positivity friends. It's Jason Wage here in Denver, Colorado, with your Power Plant Positivity tip number 24. Tell stories right now. Stories are the greatest tool that you have to inspire confidence or belief that something is possible, either in yourself or in your teams. Did you know that Americans spent $10 billion last year either going to the movies or watching movies? And there's a reason why. Story is the ultimate provider of hope. For 100,000 years, people have been telling stories as a way to convey knowledge, convey culture, and it's now hardwired into our brains. Even if you don't speak the same language as other people, story is something that you can tell in any language and it unifies. It creates connection because it elicits similar experiences, emotional experiences in all of us. There was a study not too long ago that showed that when a person hears a story, it actually stimulates the same part of the brain as when you experience an actual event. So regardless of if you experience it or you hear a story, it's triggering the same part of the brain. There was a book called Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath, and they talked about how in sales, people remember 5% of a presentation that just talks about statistics or figures, but the number jumps dramatically to 63% when you tell a story in the midst of the presentation. Back when I was an owner in a manufacturer's rep firm, one of the lines we represented was Cardinal Glass. And I would do presentations all the time. Cardinal is known for really beautiful and durable glass. And so I would go into a meeting and I could talk about tempered glass or the durability of the crystal, and people would remember some of it, they'd hear some of it. And then what you do is we'd pull out a glass and we would literally hammer a nail into a board with the glass. It was a kinesthetic experience, something people could see and touch and witness right there. And that created a greater experience. And then I would tell a story. And I would remind people of a story years ago when I went into a big customer in Denver. I went in and I was in the general manager's office and I start banging on this, I'm hammering in a nail with this glass. And I went for it. I kept going, and the glass broke. And it broke safely. It was tempered glass. It breaks in pebbles, not shards. And it went on his desk, even in his keyboard. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I just lost a sale. And you know what he did? He looked up at me and he said, "Did you see how many times you had to hit that nail before it broke? You think we got the sale?" Of course we got the sale. It's because story creates that emotion. And right now what you're doing is your job is to sell yourself and your team, if you're leading a team, on just what you can accomplish right now. And we do this because story creates emotion. Remember, the events we remember most in life are those that are tied to an emotion. Think about your past. If it's a traumatic experience, something that elicits a negative emotion, we remember it very vividly because there's a strong emotion. Or a beautiful experience, a celebratory moment from the past, you remember it because there's a strong emotion. When you are planning vacations for the future, you're doing it by telling yourself stories in your head right now. When you're trying to figure out where you want to go, if you want to go to the beach, we go to Fort Myers, or you want to go to Paris, you're telling yourself stories and asking yourself, how does this make me feel? Do I feel better picturing my feet in the sand, or do I feel better, putting a croissant in my mouth and having that whole Paris experience? You're telling yourself a story, and then you're expecting that the emotion of that experience will motivate you now to keep working and keep grinding to get to that vacation. This is the same reason why all the Chicken Soup for the Soul series by Jack Canfield, they sold like $500 million worth of books. It's all stories that help people believe in hope. You remember a few weeks ago we talked about the power of belief and Roger Bannister, who was the first person to run a 4-minute mile, a sub 4-minute mile. And they'd been trying to do this for hundreds of years and no one had accomplished it. Roger Bannister does it, and within 1 month, another person does it. It's because they heard a story that someone had actually accomplished it, and it encouraged them to believe, well, maybe I can do this. So stories often show us the power of what can be done. When I was in my 20s, I experienced a significant amount of depression, anxiety, and I got through it not because there were stats on who survived that and who didn't and who pushed through. It was because I saw examples of people who kept going. They kept taking steps forward, and they made it to not only survive out of that struggle, but found ways to thrive in it. So right now, if you or your team need a hope that you're going to pull through this, not even pull through it, but you can find ways to thrive. If you're trying to figure out how to reinvent yourselves, go to inspirational stories And movies, even if you as a person, you're trying to figure out, how do I lift myself up? How do I do it? The best way to do it is by reading a story, is by going and watching a movie right now. Okay, so let's say you're trying to figure out, you need to know that you or your team, that nothing's impossible. Go look up Free Solo. It's a documentary I watched recently. It's unbelievable. Nothing is impossible. Or McFarland USA. That's the family story we love right now, the movie that my son loves in particular. If you need to believe that greater teamwork and efficiencies together are possible, go look up the movie 4 Days in October or Apollo 13. Great movies to inspire the possibility of teamwork. If you need to believe that you can just be happier, A Year in the Taiga is a great movie about these native people who have this mindset on happiness. Anything is possible right now. It is so important that you believe that, and the greatest way you convey that is through the power of story. Use it. Let it move you. Remember, you've got this. We've got it together. Have a great day.